Right, hello, I'm Dan Buckley, and just to give a bit of a background of what allows me to be here, really. I've worked for about 15 years now in trying to empower children, and based on an understanding of how I want them to be able to learn, not about technology, but about actually how I think all of this stuff ties together. So if you hear every single speaker that you've heard over the last couple of days, if you've been here and just now, they're all talking about the child at the centre. They're talking about giving children a set of skills that are essential for them, like internet safety, like the ability, like empathy, like a whole range of skills that they need. They're talking about knowledge being slightly pointless when it's doubling every, 75 minutes, or whatever it is. And they're talking about giving people the competencies to actually do all of this, not knowledge base, but competencies. So all that research has been around for years, and I've 15 years ago tried to put one of these into practice. I'm a very pragmatic type of person. And I saw ICT as being a way of achieving it, because I've seen all of the projects that have been done in previous schools over years, lots of excellent work, largely failed because of resources and not being able to have information at the right place at the right time. So I thought, well, I know, ICT, that seems sensible, and tried to build one on a BBC network. And it was a complete failure, absolutely. So then tried to do a paper-based version, and so it's gone on, falling down holes, getting out of it, but always based in the understanding of where we're heading in terms of what we want children to do. In 2000, I was lucky enough to get a post where we could, I had the freedom to set up an e-college. And so I used laptops then to give every child a laptop, not to give every child a laptop because of the technology, but because it was the obvious way of empowering them. I then gave them a teacher training course, and they delivered the whole curriculum to each other, not in order to try and give them opportunities that would actually stretch them in terms of their confidence, their abilities, their responsibility towards each other, and so on. That was the nature of it. Now, it's no surprise, really, that it was chaos for the first 6 months, and then after 2 years, they massively outperformed children nationally. And so I've gone through doing a whole range of these projects that deliver this kind of, have delivered these kind of outcomes. And I went to David Miliband 4 years ago now, and took all of this data and said, look, these children are performing 5 years acceleration these children have gained over assessment buddies that we've done in other projects. And he said, oh, that's brilliant, really good, but I can't separate out this from raw energy. I can point to 100 people in this country who've got the raw energy to make anything work with a group of kids, or is it pedagogy? And how do I know? So I went back a bit deflated, but actually the challenge that he gave me was to land something like this into a school with the energy of the teachers that are there, but actually just unlocking some of the tools to allow this to happen. And if it does the same kind of things in those environments, then obviously we're on to a winner. So I've spent the last 3 years developing that, and I'm happy to say we've now launched it. So I'll take you through some of that and a brief understanding of what it's about. So, just to summarize, everything you've heard from all of the speakers today and over the last 2 years will have been all of this. Yes, we all agree. We all absolutely agree that's where we need to go. The current curriculum doesn't do it, but we agree that's where we're going to go. We need new schools to do that, new environments and everything else. We're actually not building them, but that's what everyone agrees we need to do. And why? Because there's stacks of research. I could fill 20 pages. You're not supposed to read this, really. 20 pages of research that just tells us that the current system is broken and we need to do something radically different. So, here's the summary I came up with to describe this. And I've described T-root being the idea that you give the tools to do this transformation to the teacher, hence the T. Okay, it's not traditional, as somebody pointed out, but to the teacher. The P-root, obviously, you're giving them to the pupil. So who do you give the tools to? Now, on the one hand, you're assuming that the teacher is going to take a load of information in and give it out again. So you're defining a model that you might recognize. It's a standard model, and you can improve that model, and I'm sure we will, over years. Somebody made the analogy of trains the other day, that actually you can evolve something and make it better and better. You can make the T-root better and better and better, but essentially it's still a train. Essentially it's still the T-root. On the other hand, we've got the P-root, which which would be a plane in that analogy. It's something, a completely different way of doing it. And at the moment, you can recognize all of this, but only in rhetoric. If you've had anything to do with school visions and BSF and so on, you'll recognize all of those words as things that people say that we need to do. Okay? Now, if you might notice that they're mutually exclusive in most cases. So all of the resources and the strategies and most of the products that you see are assuming the T-root model. They're assuming this one. But actually most of the rhetoric is talking about this one. Okay? Now, what I don't want to do is say we're moving from this to that. I think that would be naive. I'd say in the same way that now we can use planes, but we still use trains, T-root is going to be around for years. 90-odd% of the world is educated that way. To say it's going to be destroyed is just wrong. So we've got to stop trying to kick it, but just be honest about it. If you're going to set up a T-root school and you're a T-root teacher and you like the sound of your own voice, sorry, I'm a bit biased, you like teaching in that way, then that's completely fine, but just be honest that that is the T-root and that's what you're doing. You're setting a school up with classrooms, with whiteboards, 30 seats. You're setting up a T-root school. You just be honest, okay? Subject, faculties, that's fine. And I'm not saying that that's a wrong thing. I'm not saying it's quite effective. It's got a lot of data to demonstrate that it works, so fine. The alternative to that is the P-root. And that's another, so why not in BSF are we not setting up schools that are T-root, schools that are P-root, and then giving these architects a real challenge on their hands, giving us the range. So let's look at a P in a bit more detail. First of all, the technology choices that you make between the two. Some people, when we introduced this, some people thought maybe it's a spectrum of T and P. I think they're opposite ends of a spectrum. So if you're buying technology for the T-root, you want to concentrate on that on the teacher. You give a VLE, so the content that they've produced or sourced can go to all these children. You need to make them aware of everything of the child, loads of data. They need to, somehow this individual has to be aware of all the different learning styles and different ways that brains are wired up when theirs is wired up in one particular way. But this person has to make choices for those children, and you're using ICT to allow that teacher to be an amazing presenter. Okay? Alternately, ICT for that route is using innovation to try and get children so that they can learn at their own pace, at their own place, with who they want, and at the pace and with the content that they need to. Now that seems a difficult problem at the moment, and that's what ICT does. It does actually bring about transformation, but that's what the kinds of things we're asking it to do. When I did the envisioning the schools of the future work for Microsoft, this is some of the work that we came up with, and we said that the schools today are going to be somewhere between T and P. There'll be some people in your mind now, teachers that you can think they're very P-root, they're very empowering to children. There are others that you can think are very T-root. Both could be equally effective, but it's quite an interesting model to use that we found has been quite helpful. Now, if a school's heading over to the P-root, the far-flung P-root, it'll make decisions that will move the balance from the T and the P that they've got. So in terms of the rooms that they've got, in terms of the staff they employ, in terms of the projects they run and the equipment they run, they'll gradually change that process over years. We're not saying it's an overnight transformation. Now, I'm sorry the writing's a bit small on this, but this is a P-root curriculum. This is what we'd have to do if we were going to really achieve a P-root. The content is decided by the learner. So that's a problem one. It's got to be the same type of curriculum from a reception-age child to a university degree course. If I want to study a university degree and I'm 6, there are a few geniuses out there, then we can't stop them. So it's got to be continuous. It can't fall into holes. Just because we think something is better, we can't adopt it. So something like, we now know that giving children marks makes them go backwards in terms of their performance. We've known that for years, research-wise. But you talk to teachers in schools and they say, oh yeah, but they really enjoy it. Look at the smiles on their faces. They want to know their marks. So it's counterintuitive not to give children grades, but actually we can't fall down to the trap of what just feels right for us. It's got to be research-backed. So the P-root has to work from a research basis as well. The assessment has to be owned by the individuals, as it is in the science community, peer review, as it is on the internet, as it is in blogs. It's owned by the people who are doing it, and it's not rubber stamped by teachers. That's a key element. It's got to be generate more numbers than the current system because we'll still have Ofsted. So somehow you've got to measure, you've got to put numbers on empathy somehow to generate all these numbers to demonstrate progress in each of these skills. Adopted gradually so that as not overnight, not taking risks with children's futures. Learners in charge of their progress, and most of all, collaboration, creativity. Now, that may sound like a complete nightmare. How on earth can we build a school around that? But the foundation stage curriculum, if there are any foundation stage teachers in here, will know that that's already in place. That is the foundation stage. We've done it there. In your own work now, where you are, you're probably doing that, I'd imagine. It's just the bit in the middle we've got wrong. Okay, so here's a tool that hopefully will help correct that. I've developed, I thought, well, how do you do this? And started out with the analogy of the periodic table. I'm thinking, when you look at that, there's a whole range of chemical reactions and stuff, and it just seems like a complete mess. How on earth can you get any order in that? And it turns out to be 3 particles, explain the whole lot. So what is this nub at the core of learning in all of these examples? What is it? Maybe we can build an education system around that, rather than around the need to mind children. Okay, so my view would be that it's this basic. Children, give you the full simplified picture, but people choose a target. So if I want to learn to walk, I know I want to learn to walk because I can see somebody running past me and nicking my toys, and I think I want a bit of that. And I know what success looks like, I understand it, I've got a clear view of the target. It's up to me to decide when I go for it and how I do that process. Okay? The assessment will be very, very clear and normally very painful. I'll know when I've failed or passed myself, and it's a process. And parents, as the mentors in this situation, parents have got the choice of either strategically placing cushions to allow them to have the freedom to choose when they want to go, or buying a baby walker, which actually appears that they're making progress, but as we know now, stunts their growth. Sorry for those people like us who bought a baby walker. But moving on to adults, you've got your own targets, you know what success looks like, blah, 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 blah. All we need to do then, my thinking was, is feed children with inspirational targets. Show them what other people are doing, show them what they could do themselves, inspire them, they choose the targets, they then control when they're going to go for it, and then they need to get somebody who's not a teacher, nothing against teachers, but somebody who's at their own age and stage, who actually, sorry, not age and stage even, somebody who would understand what they're trying to do to assess them. Okay? Now, what I'm going to show you is just a set of targets which we've trialed with children to say, okay, we're trying to do empathy. All right? What on earth does empathy look like? So you go to a classroom, primary classroom, and you say to children, well, okay, this is what I mean by empathy, and you can show them videos and everything else, and they say, oh yeah, we get it. Okay, so who here would you say was empathetic? And they say, he is. And they, well, how do you know? What is it about? And they can give you a description, and it's a very basic description, but it makes sense to them, and you can try it with other primary children, and they say, yeah, we know what you're talking about, who that is. And you start with that basic nub of a statement. Show it to any researcher, and they say, that doesn't describe empathy, that's just a minute part of empathy. How on earth can you start with that? But we do. We start with that statement, because it's not perfect. Like GCSE, it's not perfect. So we start with that system. We then invite children to put evidence that they have reached that statement themselves, and they upload evidence that they've reached it. And that means that actually you've then got a community of content that are what children have passed this mean by empathy. So when children now look at the statement, they then quickly go to look at all the examples. What have people said means by empathy? And they get a rounder view then of all of these videos and documents and everything else that actually the children have submitted of their understanding of empathy. And they think, oh yeah, I get it. And they can then start getting ideas and inspiration for how they put their own work forward. The trick in this, though, is that who do they get it to assess whether they've done level 3 empathy then? Who could possibly assess that? Well, obviously, a child who's got level 4 empathy. Not because they're level 4, we've got the statement right and level 4 is better, hopefully it is, but because that child we know must have gone through level 3 themselves. They must have grappled with the statement, they must have looked at all the work, they must have had their work assessed twice by somebody else to say that they've reached level 3. So they're perfect people to actually assess it themselves. And so we've got this network of students now, 3,000, we launched in April, a network of 3,000 students who are assessing each other's work because they're becoming experts in a whole range of hard to measure skills, which aren't really hard to measure at all. So what do you need for this? You need a learner and an internet connection. And it's a very dumb device because it's not flashy. It just runs on the phone or the PC or anything you like. Okay? I've nicked ideas shamelessly from the internet. So there are eBay stars on there, how good an assessor you are, how reliable you are, getting people's work back, commenting positively on other children's work. You get eBay ratings that go up and down, how well you do it. How well you mentor other people you choose. Everyone's a mentor in this system, and the system tells you off if you've not been mentored each week for at least 10 minutes. And so some children try their friend first of all as their mentor, and they're a bit unreliable, so they end up going to their parents. About 10% are getting mentoring each week from their parents, in which their parents are going through, in one case on the mobile phone on the way to school, are going through everything the child's set themselves that week and what they've done, and instant, complete report weekly for parents. And it's a complete e-portfolio. We've made it, obviously, all of the work is then stored, well, in Coventry as it happens, but can go through their phone. Okay, so roughly how does it work? You take any set of skills you like. We've currently got the Building Learning Power set. Oh no, automation, dear. All right, okay, we've currently got the Building Learning Power set in there. We've got the PLTs, the new ones from QCA. We've got the UK Key Skills. Doesn't matter what skills you like. We've got some from the gaming industry that we've gone to the gaming industry and say, well, they say, we've got a skills shortage. I say, well, what skills do you need then? And they describe these amazing things like making pottery move in the background when Lara Croft moves past and all this kind of stuff. And say, okay, fair enough. There's the goal. There are level 9. We break them down. Our level 1 might be take a picture or do a short animation. Children get hold of these ladders and they look at level 9 straight away and they think, oh, I want to be that. What do I have to do? All right, I'm at level 1, brilliant, and they get on with it. And they start making their way up the ladder. They might get bored in 6 months, but it's a real motivator, and actually the ladder's intertwined, so any skills they pick up in those carry forward to all the other sets that they've done. So those sets are broken down into individual ladders, and then those into 9 levels. Not perfect, looks a bit like the national curriculum, I know, but it's really been cottoned onto by children. So we've got, as I said, 3,000 children. Here's Natasha's portfolio, and oh dear, automation again, sorry. I thought I'd taken that out, but oh dear. Great. Anyway, so Natasha's portfolio, which hopefully will come back again. There you go. So you can see there, I'll be quick, that she's got areas she's targeting. She's got areas that so the T's she's targeted herself. She's supposed to set herself 2 targets a week, but you can see she's very keen. The shaded inboxes are half ones, she's got 1 piece of evidence in that box. The double one, she's got 2. The question marks are she's awaiting assessment from some other child somewhere on those. So you can see she's been very, very active, considering it's been since April. Those are the skills down the side. This particular school is using the UK Key Skills set, so those are the competencies that they felt were important. So just to give an example, there's the statement. She can look at other children's work and see all of that, click on any of those. There's obviously clever software in here to stop her downloading it and using it as her own. We thought of that. She can upload evidence. There's the piece of work she uploaded that she did in the holidays, as it happens. There are the children who she can send it to, who've got that level already. So it actually went to Sean in London. He got this is the statement, this is the work. You're an expert, Sean, do you think it's passed or failed? And he decided that had passed, went back to her, and then it joins her e-portfolio. Okay? So now we've had thousands of pieces of work marked in this way, and we have tirelessly gone through all of them, and we've done it blind, so we've to see whether we agree or disagree. And so far, 100% accuracy. We agree with all of the assessments of all those children. The uncomfortable fact, really, well, I should say this, really, but the uncomfortable fact is that in the blind assessment, the teachers in the system, because obviously if they get to the top of a ladder and there's no children to send it to, it goes to the emergency assessor, the teacher in the school, are only 90% accurate. I just had to get that in, sorry. But I'm sure that'll change over time. So the new role of the teacher, what is it? And all we've done, they shouldn't get nervous, all we've done is taken the assessment, rubber stamping away. That's all. And so actually, one of the projects that I ran 4 years ago when I wrote a content-free curriculum, and we gave children a complete freedom to study whatever they wanted to. We kept the timetable as it was, because we were working in a secondary school, and obviously that would have caused too much disruption. So these 60 children had 2 teachers who came to them on their timetable. So they knew they were going to have a historian and a mathematician come to them period 3. They were doing a project, so they had to make appointments to those teachers. This had happened. After the project finished, all the kids got a GCSE award in 5 weeks' time, year 9. So it worked really well, but independently assessed, obviously, because it's at that standard. But the teachers, I did a session with the teachers afterwards, and I said, what did you think about that then? How did it work? And some of them said, well, this is absolutely amazing, so stimulating. I felt I was really being used as a teacher. I gave children my home email address because I was so keen to get contact. They were stopping me in the break time, in the lunch time. They were doing all of this stuff. Fantastic. The other teachers said, oh, it was brilliant. I could sit in the corner of the classroom and do my marking. Nobody bothered me at all. And you think, okay, the children have decided which of these teachers are teachers, as you describe them, people who take somebody on, identify their learning and actually give them support and moving on, and who are subject deliverers. And the children suss that out, and actually, if I'd have brought the teachers together, I'd have had an uncomfortable thing to deal with. But it's one of the things of the technology doubling every however many years, but those issues to deal with teaching and how you retrain teachers in that way is going to take lots of years. So you need to just get started with this, which is why I've called it personalization by pieces, because basically it's designed to have a small piece in your school working like a Trojan mouse and working its way outwards. And if it's valuable, it'll take hold and teachers will be brought on board and see the over years, whereas if it's not, then it doesn't cause any particular stress. Okay? I should say, the Finnish model and the Singapore model, making sure that teachers have to do action research as part of their job, right, is built into this. So actually what we do is teachers have got loads of analysis tools. They can look across the whole school and see what subjects are being children using for this. They can say what times of the day children are using it. They can say what kind of structures they're using. So they can do a project like introduce video into the classroom, and they can then take a look at an analysis of did it make an impact on whether the children use video in the coming weeks. So it gives them feedback. It's changing the role of a teacher to make sure that they're actually learning with the children. They're continually learning in that process. And this is interesting. This is time of the day. So this is real school. They're there 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock is your main times for submitting work, and in the mornings and so on. So this is, a school that's given half a day a week to this project, actually, so that they do this for half a day a week, the whole school, all through school. But they're still choosing at home to submit their work, which is, I think, quite interesting. And how am I doing for time? Because I've lost track, but I'll keep going. Give me a nod. All right, excellent. Now, this is where to in the future. Now, vision does dictate the building. Okay? If you're going to build a T-route school, you will choose classrooms, departments, teachers moving instead of pupils. Why does that happen? Teachers moving every 40 minutes or so. You'll decide all those structures based on the best way to deliver a T-route curriculum. If you start from a P-route, you'll have a very different building. And so, for example, the Grange School, it would be completely right to have a proper village built inside the school, because the Grange School gives every child a job. They do a job during the day, and they've learnt more in that than they did in the lessons. They've accelerated up through. Micro-society schools in the US are built with huge banks and courtrooms and everything else, primary schools, and the children run it or they get sacked and they take a job, outperformed all the other schools. Your pedagogy decides the building. So actually, this building schools for the future, the pedagogy is absolutely critical. And if you've got building schools for the future, your school is going to be rebuilt in 5 years' time, then you are somewhere between T and P now. So you desperately need to move the balance towards P as far as you can before that building takes hold, because actually the restrictions built into the building are one of the biggest frustrations when you want to do a model in which children are doing running services. We had children on leadership schemes, proper recognised leadership schemes, because they demonstrated the skill of being able to manage huge projects. Children needed offices and they needed spaces to manage things and so on, and that was what was difficult in the building when we were doing it in that way. So just kinds of classrooms. Now, we've just launched a newsletter, which we'll kind of hopefully build into a community to bring all of these kind of mad P-route schools. I think in terms of the analogy with aeroplanes, we're past the wings stage, jumping off a cliff. We've got something that does stay in the air for a period of time now, but we need to bring all of those people, innovators, together so we can get a jumbo jet very, very quickly before all these buildings are built to house trains. Okay, so please log on to the newsletter and also contact me, please. Thank you.